Any good stories from the road?
Pipe up.
I wish we'd gotten to see a little bit more out of our punter.
I'm starting to puke.
It makes my stomach hurt.
I thought he was going to die.
I'm starting to throw up in my mouth a little bit.
He's on the probiotics.
Is Georgia playing the 1985 Bears this weekend or what?
A lot of Todd talk.
Rat poison proof.
They're mongoose.
We will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. I can promise you that. The hunting that we do will be done from us going the other direction.
Good Sunday evening, everybody. June 25th, as we are live on the Georgia Show on the DawgsHQ YouTube channel, and we start, as we tend to do, week in and week out, with a new Georgia commitment. Nnamdi Ogboko, the Nigerian Nightmare. That's not the nickname I gave him. Don't come after me. That's what's on his huddle page. So y'all can go check that out, and we'll have some highlights coming up here in a moment. I'm Wes Blankenship, Palmer Toms, Jake Roos, Jake Rowe, Rusty Manziel, all in tonight. Guys, I love it. It's June, but the Dogs aren't slowing down, and we aren't either. What's the scoop on this big guy?
Rusty, Rusty, go ahead and tell him, or Bruce, go ahead and tell him. I mean, Georgia needs to get a Nigerian flag to fly, apparently, in the in Sanford Stadium, based on what it sounds like. Anyway.
Listen, I was talking to his coach today. Go over and read the piece that I did with that guy. What you need to know about this kid, 1 year ago in June, he started playing football. Okay? 12 months later, he's committed to the back-to-back national champions. Upside, pretty strong, I would say, in my unexpert opinion on that.
Is it as strong as my sunburn from today? That's pretty strong sunburn. 6'4", 340, 17 years old. Georgia was looking for a big body, zero-type space eater. They've worked him out twice. So, we all kind of know specifically Trey Scott's deal. You got to work out at Georgia, and it just about comes with every position now. You got to work out at Georgia at some point. And, they recruited two guys, and they got one this weekend in him. And it doesn't hurt his brother's potentially going to be a 5-star prospect at, a 6'6" prospect too. So it's a 2026 if I'm correct there, Bruce.
Stay tuned. I might have something coming with that soon too.
Stay tuned. Yeah. So you look at that, and I think with Georgia, you just listen, man. We know what he's rated, and I don't know that he's rated wrong, but I also know that I trust the eval of Trey Scott, and Trey Scott says this guy can play for Georgia, and we're taking him. And Kirby Smart says we're taking him. Then pretty much right now, that's the end all be all. And I think when you look at this young man and how young he is, I think that's that shows you a lot of upside. And like Jake just said, he's got a lot of football left to learn. And with Georgia, what they've done with their 3-down linemen, and specifically those guys in the middle, how important they are to this scheme. It always has been. When Kirby Smart and Glenn Schumann were in Alabama, they always had a big nose guard. They always had a guy that could control the middle, a 2-gap player. And you're going to have one of those. And certainly with the success they did with Jordan Davis, and now, look at Nazir Stackhouse, a guy this year that's going to be a handful for everybody to play and inside. So, John Jarrett, we all talk about him and where he is. So this is another big body guy that can kind of, wreak havoc there inside the middle.
Is that wait, Wes, I was going to say, I hate to interrupt this highlight film, but I think what we didn't see is probably as important as what we are seeing now, which is 61 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. Oh yeah. First year
never playing ball,
never played the game. So
I always love those stories, man. Guys who just, I'll flip this switch. I'll start playing this sport, and everyone's going to be really thankful that I wasn't playing it for a lot longer.
That's the story of Palmer Toms.
yeah. They're thankful that I didn't play any longer than I did. That's for sure.
A lot more people still walking out there because Palmer didn't start playing earlier.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's insane when you look at, guys like this and again, we mentioned he's a 3-star, but somebody that's being evaluated, and that's, you've got to trust the evals. It's the title of the show tonight. Trust the evals, certainly doing that with the defensive line room and all across this defense. I mean, there is nobody that evaluates talent better on the defensive side of the football than Kirby Smart does.
And nobody, I mean, you want to make it specific to the defensive line. It's Trey Scott. I asked somebody, we've all got people we talk to, and I asked somebody that I trust up there, I said, hey, what do you think of this Ogboko kid? And he said, I mean, there was some colorful language in there, but it was like the name that came up was Trey Hill, is how he's put together. And I don't know if you've ever stood next to Trey Hill, but Trey Hill's haunches can hide the sunshine in most places. I mean, he is a very big man from the waist down. I mean, giant legs, giant backside, and an anchor. I think it's a quote directly from your story, Roos, an anchor in every sense of the word.
Yeah.
And boy, you know a guy that
a lot of gold bond.
Yeah. NIL deal, baby.
Oh boy.
I remember talking with Trey Scott. The first time I ever talked to him was at the Rose Bowl Media Day in 2017. And Trey Scott, the word anchor came up a lot. Like he said it like probably 5 or 6 times. But he said it the most about at that point was John Atkins. And he said, I think of John Atkins as the strongest anchor on the biggest boat. And I think that's what this kid kind of has the ability to do for you. And in addition to all of it, just echoing it again, I mean, when you've got a guy that has played the game for a year and he's impressed you enough on the field, I mean, listen, they don't hand out offers to, 340-pound dudes just because they're 340 pounds, just because they've only played the game a year. That's not one of these like, oh, this is not charity. This is not UNICEF, okay? They go ahead and, they offer guys that they really like. And he's one of them, and that's kind of where it came in. Is they went after him, they got him, and it's a big addition there. I feel like, and there was a lot of talk about Michael Borio and kind of how Georgia would have rather had him, and why did they settle on this guy so quickly? I think the fact that they went ahead and took this kid kind of shows you this was more of a 1A 1B situation than missing a guy and following up on a guy.
Yeah, you don't recruit just one guy. Especially a position like that. You have guys that what you say are like takes. Okay, this guy's a take, that guy's a take. Well, Michael Borio was off the board and you felt comfortable with this guy and you brought him in for an official and you got it done. So you got you solidified your spot there, what you were looking for in that position.
And is it too simple to say that Borio and Ogboko were kind of complementary to Florida and Georgia? I mean, if one went somewhere,
it felt like
vice versa, the other guy was going to land the other place.
Yeah, it felt like a 7-10 split, man. I mean, it was like you're going to pick up one or the other. Listen, I mean, look, 1055 national ranking, that's not going to strike fear in a lot of hearts of a lot of people. But like I said, to me, you take that into account. The kid's been doing this for 1 year. He's 6'4", 340. He's camped twice with him. This is a ball of clay, man. With a frame and with numbers behind him. And so he's proven it already that he can do it. And now, Georgia's had a chance to see it up close. I'm not going to sit here and tell you the kid's going to beat Jordan Davis at all. But I think that what you got here is an incredible piece to work with. And go look at that film. Go look at the pictures that he put out from his official visit. If he's carrying 340, he's carrying it very, very, very well.
Did you see the arms on that dude?
Oh, buddy.
I mean, rip a Bojangles biscuit out of your hand real quick, didn't he?
And you'd be glad to give it to him, I promise.
You wouldn't have to fight me for it. I'd say, here, I can get another big dog. The arms on that.
Hey, I tried to pull into a Bojangles this morning. That line was way too long, so probably put a year onto my life. So,
and his like you said, his brother, 2026 kid, and bigger. Oh yeah, than this guy already. Going to be probably, I would say, given the eval on his brother, which I think this kid, if he plays like he did last year, we'll probably see that stock increase. He's going to be on a lot more radars now, obviously, that he's on this commitment list. So I think people will probably watch him a lot closer. I think his brother is destined for really huge things, given the ceiling that he has, the size he has, and that he's going to be on those radars a lot earlier.
When y'all were looking at Jordan Davis, I mean, I know he's not the same kind of guy, but you want to look at the position, 3-star dude. How high were the experts on Jordan Davis around this time in his career.
They were
not very high. And listen, if you've listened to Rusty talk enough, you've heard him bring up Orlando Brown, okay? And you've heard him talk about how Orlando Brown was
worst player ever.
Awful. Okay, he was bad.
Maybe he couldn't bend over. Literally couldn't. He could not grab his knee pads. Period.
Now, I didn't see Jordan Davis play ball. Okay, but I saw Jordan Davis at G-Day in person. The first time I'd ever seen the kid in person. He was at G-Day prior to the year that he signed. Let me tell you something. He was 400 pounds and shaped like a pear. Okay, like I mean, I'm talking about like a deformed pear too. He was real skinny at the shoulders and real wide at the base, and it did not look like a football player. It looked like a guy that was going to go give football a shot because he was 6'6",
a wrestler.
And yeah, I mean, and then maybe I don't know, either be a wrestler or he was gonna work with a moving company or something. Like I didn't expect it. And kudos to him, kudos to everybody in his circle that kind of got him in the weight room because there was a lot of potential there. I don't think he ever got down to 320 pounds like it said in the media guide. I think it was probably maybe 335 at the lightest. But I mean, he got it there, and all of a sudden he became one of the most freakish athletes the NFL Combine has ever seen. So I didn't see it then either, but Trey Scott did. So Trey Scott sees something in this kid.
He worked him out at North Carolina as a sophomore, and I've heard Trey Scott talk about this. It's somewhere
this is
out
Jordan Davis, by the way.
Yeah, I've heard Trey Scott talk about this somewhere. I think a Nike clinic or a Glazer clinic or one of those deals, and he said that Jordan Davis was one of the most explosive kids out of his hips he's ever seen. Period. He didn't care what he was ranked. In fact, he was kind of glad he was 3 stars, and then it wasn't World War III for the kid. There were some schools after him, but Trey Scott was 1,000,000% right on his eval of Jordan Davis. And it started when Trey Scott, the defensive line coach at North Carolina, they worked him out as a sophomore, recruited him hard, and built that relationship. And what did Trey Scott go to Ole Miss for like 3 weeks?
Yes. Yeah. Made a brief stop there.
Georgia flipped him.
Yeah, and Georgia got him. So as soon as he got to Georgia and realized he was as close with that North Carolina, I mean, he was all back on Jordan Davis again. So kudos to Trey Scott with that eval because I've heard him talk about it one of these places, and he was like, it was zero doubt for us. We loved this guy, and we thought he was as good, and he had to get his weight under control. That was the thing. Jake Rose right there. He had to get his weight under control, and once he got that under control, about midseason that year, he was a special player from then on.
Like I said, I never saw him actually play in person, but just looking at him on the sideline, I was just like, hey, this is somebody's giant uncle. I mean, it's just somebody's. I mean, he just looked like he'd been away from the game. He kind of let himself go. And
I saw him at a Rivals camp. I was standing in one end zone, he was in the other end zone, and he walked in, and I was like, "Who in the hell is that?" And they were like, "He wasn't even participating. He was just hanging out. He just showed up that day." And I walked down to meet him, and like you said, it was like the sun got darker as I moved toward him, and I could not believe the size of him. But yeah, he wasn't the most in shape kid. He played a lot of right tackle in high school too. Should be noted, Ogboko with a basketball background as well. That's always advantageous.
Also a basketball background.
So that translates over pretty well. But yeah, like I said, listen, go over, read the coach's comments on this kid. I was pretty impressed with all the things that he had to say. Said he's a fantastic kid and fantastic human first and foremost, but a lot of great things about his upside and the ability and how Trey Scott and Kirby Smart can develop a guy like this.
Now, listen, you did not take a melatonin and you didn't drink Benadryl. This is just multiple Nigerian nightmares back to back, because this is Joseph Jonah Ajanya, okay? And y'all were talking about arms earlier, and it got me thinking about this cat right here. Y'all, this dude right here, I stumbled upon these earlier today trying to find an Instagram photo of somebody. Another kid that hasn't been playing football for very long. He started playing with the freshman in high school, so he's practically a veteran compared to Ogboko. Also hails from the land of Nigeria. Also calls himself the Nigerian Nightmare. What a legacy Christian Okoye left, huh, Rusty?
No kid.
But I spoke with this cat earlier today too. And listen, there's not a whole lot of information here. I'll say this: he didn't want to do an interview because he has a commitment coming on July 12th. Read into that what you will. But Georgia's in better shape. I think Rusty would agree with this. I think Jake Roos would agree with this. I think even Palmer and his contrarian nature would agree with this. As much as he wants to.
I do like.
Yeah, but what if? Yeah, but what if?
How about this alternative?
Yeah. What do you think of this? But no, I think even Palmer in his contrarian nature would agree. Georgia exits this official visit with Joseph, Jonah, Ajanya better than they came into it. And that's saying something. Georgia came in 96.9 on the RPM, and they're going to exit, I don't know, 97.1. Maybe sounds like a radio station. The River.
That's River.
Yeah, that's the River. A little classic rock there. But this cat right here, I'm telling you, I really feel good about this dude. Not only, committing to Georgia, I've got to pick in. I'm more confident than I was. But I really feel really good about this kid at the next level too. There's just something. You talk to certain kids, you kind of get a feel for them and kind of how they. He just seems like the kind of kid that's not going to show up with a bunch of entitlement and a bunch of other things. He's a bunch of baggage. What was he, Rusty, when he checked in this week? 6'4.5", 6'4", 275, 34-inch arms.
What do you have? An 84 wingspan, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if you reported that. I remember the arm length.
Yeah, the arm length was just stupid. I don't even know.
Yeah, that's tackle. That's tackle arm length.
That's Andrew Thomas. I don't know what we're doing with humans right now. I really don't. Are we stretching arms? Does everybody get? Is that the new thing? I got to start stretching arms.
Is there a surgery?
I don't
know. I saw a viral post that some dude from Georgia went to like Turkey or something and got 4 inches added to his kneecaps or something.
I saw that too.
I can't confirm it or deny it.
From Georgia, the country, or Georgia, the state?
No, from
state of Georgia,
state, your home state.
He's got to have some Mike into him in Floyd County. I guarantee you.
I mean,
Mike White on the phone.
I'm 6'2" now. Who cares?
I think that one of the big points that has to be made here is you came into June and a lot of people were scratching heads and saying, what's Trey Scott doing? You had light class last year. You're looking light there. You come out now, you got Justin Green in the fold. You got Jordan Thomas in the fold. You got Nnamdi Ogboko in the fold. Looking great for Joseph Jonah Ajanya. You still got guys like Aiden Breland that are sniffing around this thing, man. I mean, you got LJ McCray still looking around too. I mean, there's some big names hanging out there. But within the course of about 4 weeks now, they've reshaped the face of that position group if all these guys stick. And they needed to do that, but they also delivered on it like that.
And Williams Nwaneri made it to campus this weekend. I mean, that's premium info over at DawgsHQ, but we'll let you have it. Made it into town, and in case you didn't know, that's the number 3 player in the entire country. Yeah. That is the number 1 defensive lineman. I mean, you want to talk about the dead period starts. So. Rusty, the dead period starts in 2 hours and 7 minutes, and Georgia, he's on his way home. So
the dead period started about 3 hours for Georgia staff. They're them dudes are on planes and golf courses and these coaches around the country and support staff. I follow a couple of those guys, and they were posting pictures of the golf course or an airport about 3 hours ago. So, it's good. It's good for the coaches. It's good for the support staff. It's good for these kids, man. I mean, I know they got to be. I talked to a parent last night of I would say a major UGA target. And they were just like, dude, we're done. Like, my child's done. I'm done. I can't even fit my sweatpants right now. I mean, it's been a long month. So you're going to see a lot of decisions in July, and that's kind of the pattern. We've laid that out from the start here. That June has become that month. And then you start talking about, July and all these decisions. So there's a lot of decisions going to be made. And a lot of these kids won't get this stuff over with before August. Here's the thing, guys. We talk about this, and I think people forget. You take guys like KJ Bolden and all these guys have been recruited 3 or 4 years now. I mean, they've had offers since they were freshmen. Like they've done every damn photo shoot and everything you could possibly do, and these officials were kind of that was the end of it, kind of the peak deal. And let's get ready to play some football. I had a little camp today. That's where I got my perfect sunburn there with hat on backwards. But I told those kids today, you got 1 week left in Georgia. Then we go to a 10-day dead period. When you come back, it's football season until your last game. Like it is football season, high school, college, whatever. Every practice is geared toward that first game. It's real stuff. So literally we're about 2 weeks away from every single day being important towards the high school and college football season.
Also, like you said, a lot of these kids want to get those decisions done before that season so that they can focus on that season.
Yep.
And you mentioned that July, we kind of set out ahead of time, hey, July could be the big month. I think that makes Georgia's June even more impressive, considering the fact, and Roos, you've pointed this out, they got a commitment off of every single one of these official visit weekends so far. The fact that they've had that already
that
says a lot.
Doesn't feel like an accident to me. That feels like Kirby is controlling some little part of everything and controlling the message. Maybe I need to put a tinfoil hat on.
The biggest marionettes there have ever been.
There's obviously there's some that went silent, and how I treat a silence. Can you hold them? Just because you were silent, I 100% don't know Joseph Phillips was a silent, but I know that Georgia felt really, really good about him until they didn't. So can you hold these guys that are quote unquote silent commits until these visits are over with? So I think Georgia's got 2 or 3 silents that are going to stick with Georgia. So we'll see how those play out, as Palmer said, into July. And as Wes is saying, there were some guys that went public, kind of out front here and committed in front of everybody in June, including a flip. Chauncey Bowen just flipped in front of the other recruits. So, but you look at those, I think that Georgia's got some guys that'll be public with their commitments here next 2 or 3, 4 weeks.
I wanted to throw one quick note in. You mentioned Williams Nawari made it to campus. If you go over and look at Williams Nawari's Twitter profile, what's next to his name? That's a Nigerian flag, my friends.
Yes, sir, buddy.
Just to kind of hammer home the theme from earlier. So pretty interesting. I'm like, and listen, hey, you know where Shadero Uzo Daribe is from? You know where his roots are? They're in Nigeria as well, my friends. So there's methods to all of this, man. I mean, there's levels.
Look at Mountain Jake, our geopolitical recruiting expert here.
Be surprised if they studied today when the power was out. You see, he got them books.
Somebody said on our board today that they said Kirby needs to set up a guy to have an office in Lagos.
In Lagos, yeah.
And I'll tell you this. I'm not kidding you. I fully believe this. Within the next 5 to 10 years, Africa is going to be a super important place to have connections in. I think it already is emerging right now, but I think within the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see that be an incredible hotbed for football talent and talent at this level as well.
I'll send Palmer to cover that first camp.
Palmer reporting live from a safari.
As long as
safaris in Nigeria, I apologize if they don't. Rusty, you're highlighting June and how big of a deal it is. And I got to imagine that the morale right now for Georgia staff, even though it sucks, it's hard work, and you are really hurting a lot of cats right now. But I got to imagine when you see the hardware, you see the results of the hard work in recruiting classes past and what it can turn into with national championships, I have to imagine that makes it a little bit easier to put that hard work in, and doesn't hurt to see some commitments pop off too for some short-term success as well.
I would say for 95% of the staffs, that is a very accurate statement. But Kirby Smart don't let off the gas. You know what I mean? I remember talking with Sam Pittman one time. I ran into him at a concert in Atlanta, and he was there during the dead period, and he was texting Kirby about a kid as we were ordering beverages, getting ready for the concert. So you're away from the things, and you get to kind of look like, hey, we're done. We had a really good June, and we got these guys, but the guy in charge knows that it's not over, and you got to continue to recruit, and you got to continue to recruit multiple classes. And just because you don't have those kids on campus doesn't mean you're not going to be communicating with them. So right or wrong, these guys are going to take a little bit of vacation time, but that phone's not going to be cut off, and you're not just going to be bouncing around, beating your chest going, I got this guy, we got June wrapped up, because that's just not the way that Kirby Smart's wired. And to work for him, you would understand that that's not going to happen. So yes, they've had a really, really good June. This class is obviously number one in the country industry wide, and they're doing some things, but that guy is he's just wired different, man. And he's not going to take his foot off the gas until December, when all those kids are signed, sealed, and officially Georgia Bulldogs.
That guy's hell on an iPhone battery. You know that, man. I mean,
oh God,
go through 3 or 4 a year. Got to, man.
He's got a Mophie that looks like it would just solve all kind of stuff, like NASA. Like it would launch NASA stuff. So
I want to pose a question here real quick. Let's imagine today is July the 20th. Georgia's got 21 commitments as of June the 25th. Okay, that was a long time ago. That's not today. If today's July 20th, how many commitments are in Georgia's class right now, do you think, Rusty, if it's July 20th?
What would you say we're starting with right now?
At 21 right now, how many, on
public.
July 20th, how many does Georgia have, you think?
21. We got 21 publics.
Mm-hmm.
July 20th.
I feel like I'm on the message board. I'm like watching message board live here.
Message board live.
You can do this in my head. So I got
2, 4, 6, 8.
I'll go.
Who do we appreciate?
I'll go 26.
That's the number. That's the number I had in my head too. I think Georgia will have 26 in the next 25 days.
Also, we should note that they started this run on May 15th with Dylan Raiola, and it has not quit since then. So the majority of this class has been flowing in since that time. And if they're able to get it there by that time, goodness gracious, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the D-line guys, and then if they can finish off the O-line, I know the emphasis was on large humans, and it looks like they're going to be adding large humans to this class. Guy, we don't. Go ahead.
I was going to say, by my count, 10 since that May 15th.
Yeah,
date.
there you go.
That's a good point.
Plus one in the 2025 class.
Since the old throw-in session?
Yeah, the infamous.
Nikar holding in strong here. The first commit.
I tell you what, Nikar. I talked
underrated, forgotten about. I would say
Mickey Mouse.
The ratings. Say what you will. People forget about that. They keep saying these five-star receivers, five-star receivers. Listen, Nikar is a dude.
I'm telling you right now, 100%. And I've talked to some people that have went up against Colquitt County in summer. And, I tweeted that video out as Coach Calhoun sent me from Florida, 7-on-7, that one-hander he made in the corner. And I'm just telling you, man, this dude right here, if Nikar were to commit tonight and he'd been uncommitted, the Georgia fan base would go nuts. They would absolutely go bonkers, like high-fiving, chest bumping. But the guy's been committed so long, you just kind of take it for granted how good a player he is. So Kobe White's another guy I think that's extremely underrated. Kind of fits that mold. But I put
Nitro Tuggle is overlooked, in my opinion.
Well, we're going to find out on him. You know what I mean?
You're right.
There are questions, okay? And I'll be the first to say his tape is ridiculously good. Now, he was the best player on the field every single Friday night. So he's going to IMG, and I love that about him. I don't particularly a kid up from Georgia going to IMG. I don't vouch for that. I don't think you need to. But a kid like that who wants to play better competition, he's got to go out of state to get that. So I love that Nitro Tuggle is going there. We're going to find out real quick on him. I think 3 or 4 games into this by September, we'll know what type of player he really is. I have zero concerns right now. I think he's a really good player.
Ellis Robinson's going to be able to tell you what kind of player he is. I guarantee you that.
No doubt. So, yeah, that's a great point. And IMG, a couple games early on, I think, on national TV. So we're going to find out real quick on him. But I just think that this class, people they start looking at these guys. Dude, I've seen Jaden Riddell in person now, and this guy is 17 years old. He's 6'4", 240 pounds. I mean, his damn mitts on him, man. I mean, we don't talk about him. You just kind of take it for granted. But if Jaden Riddell were to commit tonight, it would be massive, massive news. So, that's why this class is number one for a reason for dudes like that.
Don't take it for granted, Dogs fans. It's like, the more they roll in, the more you just get accustomed to it. I like kind of the bouncing around the current class right now.
Dwight Phillips.
Dwight Phillips, I was going to say.
I made a note in our dog treats. So I put up dog treats a little bit early, and that's a VIP or a plus for us. If you want to read that, you got to be a subscriber. But I will give you this note. He was 180 this weekend. It's the middle of summer. He's been playing football. He's been running track. And that is a great weight for Dwight Phillips. That tells me he can carry 190 pretty easy. So when you look at one of the fastest players in the country, period, at track or football, you look at him and the threat he could become. But if that, I was a little worried he was going to be 170, but for 180 at this point in summer, I love that. I think that kid's going to carry 190 easily. And I know I'm a public school kid, but that 10-200 is smoking.
Yeah, and this the thing about Dwight, that he's got that running back label, and I think he'll be used very much like that. But a dangerous gadget inside of an offensive scheme, man. A guy who can fill a number of roles for you. James Cook-esque, I would say, in that regard, man. Can get you yards when you need them, but you can line him up wherever you need as well, and he can get that done too. And he's doing it with elite track speed behind
James Cook meets Mecole Hardman in some ways, I feel like. And
I like a little shifty. Mecole was like a lot of straight line.
Right, yeah.
I think Dwight's a little shifty.
Man, and that's dangerous. That's dangerous when you can get a guy that's kind of wide open from that first step and can kind of do those things. My 10-2 days are behind me, or I would
Oh no! Not if they bring out the captain's platter, they're coming back. I promise.
They're running 60s over there, or what?
Dylan Brooks brings up the thing that while we're kind of talking about all the good news in Georgia's class, something that was a little bit anxiety-inducing for some people on our board over at DawgsHQ. This photo right here, Ellis Robinson, KJ Bolden, and Peyton Woodyard in Tuscaloosa visiting the Tide this weekend. I think if you're Georgia, you should feel pretty good about this. These guys love the Dogs, but Cruton is Cruton.
Wonder if that picture was taken intentionally. Hard to
Makes you think.
One thing, if those guys stick, one of these old Twitter editors are going to really have fun with that. They're going to spice that one up and change that lettering on that sweatsuit there. So, listen, I've been around Ellis Robinson. I've been around his family, and I sat down with his dad one night in Nashville, just a couple dads. And the way he talked about Will Muschamp, Fran Brown, and Kirby Smart, you never say never, but man, it seemed like he was completely sold on Georgia. And, he said, look, those three guys coaching DBs and involved with DBs and experience they've had. He went down the list. He knew who Will Muschamp had sent to the pros from South Carolina. J.C. Horn recruited him, first rounder, those guys. So he had done his homework. So I feel confident there. You look at KJ Bolden, what kind of decision he's going to make. I still think in the end this is going to be Georgia and Ohio State. So we'll see. We'll go back and look at that picture maybe in September and see what kind of message we get from it.
Good point from Matthew C. They had to get some feather dusters out before they took that photo.
Hey, Alabama fans had a lot of fun with there was a tweet or something that said, hey, you done let this, talking about Kirby, you done let this man get a national championship. And it was Justice Haynes and Caleb Downs, and maybe another prospect in a picture last year. And that kind of went viral amongst the Alabama fans because all of those guys ended up at Alabama. So that one might end up kind of being turnabout's fair play for Georgia fans.
One thing you never have to adjust is your monitor when you look at Breaking Tea and all the fine apparel we have every single show that we highlight on the Georgia show.
Still waiting on mine, by the way. Still waiting on my breaking tea, by the way.
Yeah, also me too. There, Ro.
Hey, so
let's
Venmo
take
me
this
some shipping.
offline.
Yeah. Venmo me
Because
some
I think we all have some bones to pick on that. I'm still waiting on my Philadelphia Dogs.
Mine fits great, guys.
I wake up the other day and Jake's Instagram's got his son sleeping in the breaking tea. Just saying, I need him breaking tea there, Ro.
Yeah, let's make this whole segment about the shirts that Ro owes us.
Well, let's make this about that we want breaking tees at our house that Jake Rowe promised us and didn't deliver. And like my Masters polo, it'll probably take a year and a half before it's in my mitts. All right, so
I will say that sounded like that was more your fault.
Palmer got his Masters gear same day.
True, and I have my breaking T-shirt.
He's also got his breaking tee.
Jake might be picking favorites over here.
He's a preferred customer. I get it.
These damn locals.
Don't order your breaking tee from Jake Rowe. Order it from Breaking Tea. You'll probably get it a lot quicker. They got T-shirts. They got hoodies. I love the vintage helmet look with the undefeated 15-0 here. Whatever you want, though. Whatever makes you bark. Head on over to Breaking Tea. There's a link in this show's episode description.
That looks like a welding curtain. Is that mine? He don't have any volume. Look, he's a mess.
That's a large. That would belong to that one
That's
right
mine,
there
I
would
think.
belong to Jake Roos or Wes Blankenship.
All right.
We'll get you some bubble wrap and
We're gonna fill it out
Ship
a lot
it out.
differently. I can promise you that. My large and West Blankenship's large are a different size large. I promise.
I don't know, man.
Wes is beefed up, dude.
These days, I spend a lot more time in the rocking chair, not getting much sleep. It doesn't do
just
you
getting
too many
fatter by
favors
the
at
day.
pool season. Palmer, you wrote about Kirby Smart's championship adjustment, and this is on the podcast with Drew Brannon, should say, who, if you're not familiar with his role with the team, has done a lot with Georgia's mental approach and a lot of their connection and finding out their why. You may have heard about the skull sessions that Georgia does. Well, before Drew Brannon was, along for the ride, Georgia worked with a guy named Trevor Moawad. He has passed away, but he did a lot of great work for Georgia and for a lot of college programs, not just the Dogs. And one of those instances where you saw Georgia take advantage of that mental approach early on in Kirby's career was at the Rose Bowl. And Trevor Moawad wrote a book, co-wrote it with Andy Staples, and you talk about getting to neutral. That was what the title of the book. And I spoke with Andy months ago during Georgia's last football season, and he kind of gave me this anecdote where Kirby was, kind of locking eyes with Trevor at halftime of that game, and Rodrigo just hit that field goal that gave Georgia some momentum going into halftime, and he said, "Trevor, I'm having some trouble getting to neutral." But Georgia can laugh about it now, but even with that story, it took Kirby a few years to kind of adopt this mental approach to the game. Palmer, I'll let you take it from here, man. You can read what Palmer wrote about based on the interview that Drew Brannon did on his podcast with Kirby. But I thought this was really interesting that it actually took until after the 2020 season for Kirby to do some investigation on his own approaches to the game and leading this team, and that clearly flipped a switch 2 national championships later.
Yeah, I mean, since that Cincinnati game, they've gone 29-1, 2 national championships, 2 college football playoff appearances. I mean, couldn't have gone much better. And I think that, listening to Kirby talk there, you get a feeling for how he's changed as a coach, not just from 2020 on over these last 2 championship seasons, but from the day he, started coaching, from the day he took over at Georgia. He understands now that he can't do it all. He's got to have a great coaching staff around him that he feels comfortable delegating to. And I think that, if you put that piece together with what Kirby had to say about last year's coaching staff and that it was the best group of coaches that he had been around, working with at Georgia, not a knock on any of the other staffs, but the way that they bought in, to continuing to do what Georgia had done and to, reloading from a team that was so successful and was so, veteran led, the way that coaching staff bought in. I think that makes sense. Hearing what Kirby had to say about how delegation and trusting more people to do their jobs and, wishing that he had been better at that at the beginning, but also knowing that had he done it that way from the start, he may not be where he is today. And this program may not be where it is today. It kind of takes, the not necessarily failures, but he described the run between I guess it was 2018-19 and 2020. After they had won the SEC championship and gone to the national championship, he said that was kind of a stagnant period for the program. I think that it took hitting that stagnant time for Kirby to kind of realize some of these things.
When I look back on those years, I see Kirby really learning trial by fire how to manage the quarterback room, how to manage a team that had a lot more talent on it, star-wise, recruit-wise, than the 2016 team did, obviously. But even the 2017 team, those were some really loaded teams, but it seemed like he noticed that he had to find a way to make all those guys work together and not just be a bunch of really talented football players.
And that 2018 recruiting class was the number one class in the country, his first. So, I do think that you're right there. And, it was really interesting to hear him talk about, some of the changes that they made. That he said, he didn't spend a lot of time on it in Alabama, and that, working with Trevor there, he was like, hey, I've got to go get these scripts done. I've got to get these plays done. More worried about the X's and O's than he was what they called investing in human capital. So, to see that transformation over time I guess, it's a maturing as a head coach, is really interesting to see. And obviously the results that have come with that.
Yeah, we talk about it a lot on this show. The difference between Kirby at Georgia and Kirby at Bama is that over the last couple of years, he's found a way to hammer home this connection part of it, and it took off since that 2020 season after beating Cincinnati in the Peach Bowl. The podcast is called The Growth Project. It came out at the beginning of the month, so go back and listen to that. If you want to check that out, I'll throw a link in our episode description. Guys, before we wrap up, get to dog stocks. Just want to kind of do some housekeeping on the team. They put out a really cool workout video on Friday, I believe, from when they were working out on Friday, and it's intense. Sinclair's got them running up hills now and really whipping them into shape with their conditioning and strength training as well. This period of only working out and working out really hard in June is going to kind of dissolve and fade into summer workouts and fall camp here in a few weeks. What is life like for a Georgia football player between now and the start of fall camp?
I watched that video. I threw up in a trash can.
Jalen Walker's comment on it was really what struck me. He said, "Scared," or what did he say? Scared of work, don't belong here.
Yeah,
and I think that's the message. To me, it's impressive that you've got guys kind of shouting that out. Sure, they could do it for the gram, but I think that at the end of the day really is something that these guys have all bought into, and it's impressive that the coaching staff has been able to trickle that down into those guys.
Tate Ratledge and Zion Logue did that recently on a what's the name of that podcast again? God, I always
Real Talk.
Real Talk.
Yep. And Zion did it in a workout video from a couple weeks ago too.
Yeah,
said you don't want to work, do not come to the University of Georgia.
And that's exactly what they were talking about. They were like, listen, you can't be scared to work. And they said they tell that to everybody that comes in. That's something Georgia's very upfront about. They're like, listen, if you say it, you mean it, you follow through with it. it resonates. It's like screaming into a cave or something. It just kind of echoes throughout, and it becomes kind of that deal. I thought the most encouraging thing from that video, other than Jordan Hall just doing some curls for the girls, was Dominic Lovett, a transfer. Kind of being like, we're gonna put that work in. Nobody else does it like we do it. And I don't know, man. From Wes's video, from the weave, I don't know, man. There's a lot of buy-in with that kid. I think Georgia should be
he seems like he's been in Georgia for a long time.
That's him right there, man. That's Georgia wanted him, and Rusty can tell you, man, the vibe about him, the vibe about his transfer portal recruitment coming out of Missouri was one thing, and then he visited Georgia, and it was another thing. It was like Georgia. I mean, and Brian McClendon basically told me this on the record, off the record. I can't even remember, but I don't care. He doesn't care either. Whenever I talked to him at the Chick-fil-A Media Day, he was like, hey, man, you come in, you show these kids we got a process. We've got a way of doing things. We got a certain standard that we're going to meet. And it resonates with some of these kids, and it did with him because listen. I'll just come right out and say it. The him when he left Missouri, it was like it's going to take NIL to get this kid. It's going to take NIL to get this kid, and then he comes and visits Georgia, and they're like, "This is what we're going to do, and this is what we're going to do, and we're going to win we're going to a hell of a lot of games, and we're going to develop you, and we're going to work you hard. We're going to push you to your limits." And then him and his family came out of that visit thinking like, "That's where I want to be," and that's how it worked.
Let's take a minute to answer some questions before we get to dog stocks and say goodnight. Nathan Johnston asked, while waiting patiently for this answer, any word on how wide receiver Anthony Evans is looking heading into the fall?
He's participating in summer workouts with the team. I think no news is good news out of the summer. Like, you don't want to hear anything out of Anthony Evans until the first day of practice and he's in pads and everything. So if you hear anything, it's usually not good news.
Yeah.
Summer wise, so you don't get much out. You get there's little access at all. But I can answer that in my opinion that Anthony Evans will be in the rotation as a guy that is going to be counted on this year. Doesn't mean he's going to start, but I think Anthony Evans is going to play some. I think he's got a really good skill set. Obviously, he's a burner, and we've talked about that. And you look at the evaluations of Todd Monken at wide receiver, and he was very key in Dylan Bell, who we all think, Jake Roos, I think Palmer, Wes, everybody agree that Dylan Bell is going to be a really good player at Georgia. Well, Anthony Evans was another kid out of Texas that Brian McClendon and Todd Monken both evaled. So Todd Monken with a wide receiver background. I think people don't know that. He coached wide receivers. That's what he made his hay until he started calling plays. So
a lot longer than quarterbacks.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where he was. So I think the evals there on those guys, if you want to go back to a couple of last things with him, and Brian McClendon certainly can hold his own with anybody. He goes out and does the recruiting and signs these kids, coaches them up. But when you have, Will Muschamp, Kirby Smart, and Fran Brown, they all do DB evals. I mean, you'd be crazy not to use your resources in the office. It's not a one-man show. So you look at Brian McClendon and Todd Monken the last couple of years have been heavily involved in that wide receiver eval. So I have no concerns so far at Anthony Evans or anything I've heard.
I bet he's looking fast. That's what I'll say.
Speed, man. I mean, those guys can run. You got to run to play at Georgia. You just got to run. You got to run, or you got to be dynamic, kind of the Barton Simmons old term. You got to be short area sudden. And, I think that's what Sakovi White's got. Sakovi White might not be a burner, but you change the direction and ball skills and short area suddenness, man. He's got it too.
Shout out to those Vanderbilt Commodores, man.
How about that? How about my man Barton in the plug?
Aiden Chris wants to know how is Jarrett Gibson going to choose Texas over the Georgia Bulldogs?
Nothing changed. I mean, that's just that's what it was going to be, dude. I mean,
that's what we wanted from the get-go.
Yeah, if you've been following that for a while, that's not a surprise to anybody, man. I mean,
you guys ever heard of Bijan Robinson?
Yeah.
Texas has got a good program too, man.
So we don't ruin a kid's moment, and certainly we're not going to ruin a kid's moment at an on-3 event in Nashville. But about 3 times we asked him questions, and he had to retake because he said, "Yeah, when I get to Texas, it was like,
can we shoot that one again?"
We had to. It was like 3 different videos. Goes,
that's funny. That is so funny.
So,
Sean D, last one here. How are things looking with Dylan Stewart?
I personally, I'll take this one to start off. Rusty, you can follow it with. I still just don't feel good about it personally. I think that Georgia is clearly in it, top 5, right? I mean, they got an official visit. There's still there's a puncher's chance here. I wouldn't put my money on Georgia today.
I don't think this one's going to be. This is going to be one of those ones that we're going to cover all the way to the end. Yeah. I think this is going to be one that's going to be to the end. So at this point, I would not say Georgia. But I do think that we're going to have to continue to mention Georgia around him because this one's going to be, my opinion, it's going to be one of the December deals. This is a 6'5", 250-pound, defensive end, outside edge guy that there's not many of those. So, schools.
They're going to keep swinging.
I'm going to tell you this now. South Carolina landed Nicholas Harbor last year. And South Carolina's in this thing with him now. I don't mean they're getting him, but Ohio State, South Carolina, Alabama, Georgia, all but South Carolina's a team you probably don't take much of a threat. I can tell you, they're in this thing with him. So I don't think this one's going to be over until December. This might be the one that we're all having to watch. At 3:00 on National Signing Day. Everybody's just like, man, can we get this last one over? And then do that 3:00 December deal. So I think this one's going to go the distance.
All right, I'm glad you let me know that now. Let's go ahead and get some dog stocks. I'll get us started. Stock up on huge Georgia fan Chase Elliott running into Libby Dunn at NASCAR event this weekend. I think his NIL evaluation just went way up, just went through the roof, just being near Libby Dunn. And I believe the Dawsonville pool room sounded the siren just because of these photos. So stock up on Chase Elliott. Congrats to the 9 car.
I met her at the On3 event in Nashville, and I said, "Look, I'm a girl dad. Keep doing your thing, And then I talked to her mom, was there for a while, and I said, "Look, how do you handle all this? How crazy?" And this thing really took off about a year ago, and I mean, she's got 12 million followers on social media. I mean, you can imagine I think she's the highest grossing athlete or the most followed collegiate athlete, period.
Palmer's like 30 of those.
Yeah.
What is it about the state of Louisiana? Because if I'm understanding correctly, I think Addison Rae, I just found this out like this week, Addison Rae, who's got like 50 million followers on Twitter. She's not an athlete, but she's also from Louisiana.
Well, she's Libby's from New Jersey.
Oh, but she goes to
LSU.
Gotcha. Oh, okay.
Want to have that. She talked a little about she want to have that college experience of a big time program, and it's like most kids up north. They're fighting to go to these college towns, down south now, and so Libby Dunn, you just like ESPN zoomed in on her at the national championship 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, she was signing some old dude's hat and became a meme.
Oh man, they roasted. Oh boy. So,
yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah,
I just didn't know if it
deserved it.
I just didn't know if it had something to do with Shay Dixon or Billy Ann Body or something like that. Go in there and our LSU dudes over there just kind of running stuff. I don't know if they just
they told the story of going to Utah in a gymnastics meet and the fans shaking the bus. They had to literally have security to get them out of there. Yeah, man. Gymnastics, the gym meets get rough in Utah.
$3.4 million NIL valuation per On3.
And they got landlocked saltwater lakes too. I don't even understand. It's a weird place out there.
I am confident that she will never in her entire life worry about a power bill.
Yeah. and mine's coming due here in about a week.
She will never during the show.
What's that Libby Dunn energy there, Ro?
Nobody will ever tell her to turn the AC up. The power bill was high last month. I can assure you.
Wes, I was going to say, if you look at number 5 there on that NIL ranking, also a women's athlete at
another Tiger,
Angel Reese.
Yeah,
she's done well since the national championship for sure.
NILSU.
All right. Enough LSU on the Georgia show. What are we doing? Who's next?
Hey, I'm gonna go ahead and go because I'm just gonna be short and sweet. I don't know if I'm gonna get a chance to do this again, but stock up on landmark birthdays. There's a couple dudes on this here podcast right here, this here live show. We got them coming up, and I'm one of them. And we got they're bad ones too. They're bad ones. But me and the guy I'm right beside right here on this screen, we got landmark birthdays coming up here within a month of each other.
What are the landmark birthdays?
I'm going to turn 30. Yeah, Rusty's also going to turn 30. So
okay.
I'll be honest with you. I'm turning 50, and it's a Christmas miracle, like that I'm here. So everybody gets like, I'm depressed. Like, dude, I'm.
Yeah, you have the best tan on the show, so you're good.
I'm trying to get across right here, so I'm gonna work on that tomorrow.
Hey, Rusty, you know what's great though, man? I remember this is what's cool about this business and cool about what we do, and I remember when you turned 40, and I'm about to do the same thing. So it's I've got to where I've for the past like month or so, I think it's a daily update with my wife. I'll just like out of the blue say, I cannot believe I'm about to turn 40. So I feel like I turned 30 like yesterday. So 40's coming up in August, and Rusty's 50's coming up in about 10 Julys from now. So
I'll tell you this. Chuck Roos once told me that's the goal. Right. He said, I said, I got real freaked out about turning 30. And he was like, hey, don't worry. That's the goal, man.
I've never thought of that way, but I've never been bothered by it. I mean, now my wife on my 40th, she had an 80s cover band doing a surprise party. So I woke up the next day feeling 60. But, other than that, we had a great time.
By the way, Rusty, my invite to your 50th must have been lost in the mail. I haven't received that yet. So.
There's rumors. Well, see,
is it with my breaking tea?
Is what's going on? You unravel your breaking tea, you'll see your invite right there. So if you get it late, it's not my fault. So
I'm looking at these breaking teas over here. I'm not seeing anything.
I'm about to have the birthday that puts me at the same age that Jesus was when he died. So that's kind of surreal. 33. How am I supposed to feel knowing that I could potentially be older than Jesus?
Yeah.
It's a weird place to be.
I can tell you, I'm older than Jesus was right now. And all it's cracked up to be.
All right. Maybe he was on to something.
That you said it with the mouthful of ice really was what did it.
And then all it's cracked up to
Don't
be.
you worry about that.
We've got way off subject here. Dylan Brooks is talking about Party at Bogey Joe's. I've told this many times. That is where I watched OJ run that night, sitting with Arn Anderson, and a drank about 20 pitchers of.
We're going to Giggity's, baby.
So we're going to Giggity's. That's what, both of y'all's life was changed that night.
Yeah, it was. I've been to Giggity's, baby.
Yeah. Don't go to Giggity's.
All right.
If you don't go to Giggity's home, you're not.
All right. I'm going to do mine tonight. My stock is on stock up on Georgia's salad days in recruiting, man. We keep getting these posts on the board about people saying, what are they going to do here? What are they going to do here? Appreciate what you're getting, man. Palmer just gave you that rundown. It was 10, right? 10 since May 15th. All right.
11 if you want to add in a 2025.
11 if you want the
hard hitter.
Dude, some cats. Not some. These are not walking around. These are not dudes that are. They're not going to D2s if you don't take them. I promise you that. Okay. It's really good times, man. I appreciate it. You're coming off of one of the great runs in terms of back-to-back national championships, and you're following that up with a number one recruiting class. And you're on fire in the summer, something that Georgia has historically struggled with in the last few years. It's been a lot slower than this. I can assure you of that. And people were wringing their hands a lot harder. Georgia right now, absolutely killing it on the recruiting trail. Soak it in, Georgia fans. Enjoy the salad days, man. These are good times. And just get in there and appreciate it and give your other friends shit. It's your turn.
Yeah. No doubt. You don't have to hear 1980. When's the last time you heard 1980?
Yeah, no doubt. That's been a minute.
Yeah. So
I am going to not chop wood. I didn't chop wood on Wednesday because I messed up the show.
I'm chopping wood on Palmer turning the show off.
You chopped
Stock up on Palmer not ruining the show.
Stock up on not hitting the end broadcast button too early. No, but my stock report is back to the topic of LSU, and it's Wes Johnson, Georgia baseball coach. He's been hitting the transfer portal hard. 6 guys that have committed to Georgia. 2 were committed beforehand under the previous coaching staff, but he's went and picked up 4. Some big names, some guys that are supposed to add to this team, and excited to see what he continues to add. I think when you're looking at what they've added so far and what they're still going to add, or what you would expect them to add, look for pitching, because that's what Wes is all about. That's his calling card. For Kirby Smart, it's defense. For Wes Johnson, it's pitching. And so they have yet to add to the transfer portal class with a pitcher. They had Brian Zeldin committed from Penn, who is committed to play. He did so under Strickland, but he is going to come. And I think that if you want to look at where Georgia can add to this class of transfers, first of all, it's huge that they got Charlie Condon back. That's the biggest transfer portal name that they could have gotten, and it's one that they're keeping as opposed to bringing in. But look for those pitchers, some big names that you might see hitting the transfer portal, depending on how the MLB draft goes. So stock report on Georgia baseball, Wes Johnson. Stock down on those pitchers today at LSU, but stock up on that LSU pitching staff so far throughout this College World Series. Should be a exciting Game 3 tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch.
Yep. Real quick for me, I'll touch on that 1 second. You stock up and kid from Rockmart, Georgia. I mean, Ty Floyd pitched last night for LSU, one of the best performances in the history of the College World Series. So my high school coach who played at Georgia, Lynn Honeycutt, put on Facebook today, he goes, that might have been the best performance of anybody in Northwest Georgia ever in that big of a moment. We've had some great athletes from this area, so could have been. So stock up for him, and Wes Johnson was his lead recruiter to get him to LSU from right here in Northwest Georgia. So stock up real quick for me. Don't have to mention names, but the support staff at University of Georgia for what they have kind of, we all know these on the field guys, and we all know Kirby Smart and all that, but to be able to have a number 1 class in the country, you got to have a support staff, and you got to have things go smooth. You got to have camps that's going on. You got to have official visits. You got to be good with parents, and you don't get all these names for these people, and certainly you could go on for days and days that support staff, and you guys probably follow them social media and the ones there, so don't have to mention any names. But as a group, the off the field staff at Georgia, all the way from football ops to those guys, have to make things smooth to be able to have that many prospects. Those camps have the largest youth camp in America, the only overnight kid camp in America. So that's 3 nights. And then you start talking about, you have 4 weekends, basically 5 with the scavenger hunt weekend. So stock up for those people, because I know they're taking a well-deserved break now for the next 2 or 3 weeks. And you don't get a number 1 recruiting class in the country without that support staff, period.
Kirby taking them out on the boat?
Kirby will not be doing that. I'm sure he is. I think from some of the socials I follow close to him, I think he is somewhere with some really, really white sand and a nice sunset for a while.
All right.
Yep.
Heard it here first, baby. Great show, guys. This was a lot of information, and I don't think anyone does it better than we do on the night after another big commitment for the Dogs. They just keep coming. Hope y'all have a great summer as well. We'll keep this thing rolling, though, every Wednesday and Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Hit like and subscribe. Head on over to DawgsHQ.com for a premium membership for all the behind-the-paywall information and scoop and analysis that we have over there. And, guys, it's almost bark after dark time. 9 p.m. on Mondays coming up, returning in July. Is that correct?
You're muted. You're muted. Grow up. Come on, Grandpa.
Come on, man.
Yeah, returning in July. It may not be the first Monday in July, but it will at the latest be the second. So, Roos and I were talking earlier today. We might have a recurring guest on there, a guy that I still to this day, no offense to Matt Godwin, consider our best guest ever. So,
it's West Blankenship, everyone.
There's a tease. I mean, the Matt Godwin show, y'all, that's like a touchstone in this YouTube world.
It is. And listen, that Matt Godwin was almost too good for Bark After Dark.
Going to that well. Yeah.
He was too high quality
we're
for us.
We're the dive bar of UGA podcasts. Okay.
We are. we want somebody, little hint here, we want somebody to flash that cash. So,
the normal bar of
somebody bring a little
Georgia
cash
podcast.
on the podcast, somebody throw a little petty cash around. So we may have somebody like that come on. So we'll see.
The dive bar. Yeah. All right.
Thank y'all for tuning in each and every week, commenting, and for the newcomers in the comments too. We see you. Thanks for chatting it up with us. There's a lot more that came from each and every week here on the DawgsHQ YouTube channel and the Georgia Show. We will catch y'all next time, Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. See ya.